Good evening and welcome. First, I want to thank all of you for taking some time of your day and being with us here tonight. Hopefully you join us tomorrow and the day after as well. I would like to thank the sisters for saying yes to being here with us and to lead this parish mission. I have had a wonderful time with them since they've been visiting us, and I'm sure you will enjoy their talk, their witness, and their presentation as well. So hopefully you take something with you that will inspire you and will help you in your relationship with the Lord.
Good evening, everyone. We're so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you to those who are watching on the YouTube channel. So we're very, very happy also to meet you in your homes as you are praying with us and for us from your homes. So I have the most important question that I'm going to ask you, and that is, can you hear me? Good, because if you can't hear me, then we're in hot water. So a lady today told me that she appreciated the fact that I'm spunky. I'm like, spunky? I was like, I wonder why she's saying that. So I'm going to start with a joke. But it's not really a joke. It's unfortunately true. And it goes that in my life, I fell in love with 3 men, unfortunately, in this order: Bon Jovi, Jesus, and St. Francis of Sales. So thank God that the order has changed. So now Bon Jovi is number 3, Jesus is number 1, and St. Francis of Sales is number 2. So St. Francis of Sales has been my favorite saint for the past 30 years. And Saturday was the very first time I ever walked into a church, this one, named after St. Francis of Sales. I've never walked into a church named after him. Yes, he deserves it. And so when Father Zach called to offer us the invitation to come to give a parish mission, so we start talking, and then I asked him, okay, what's the name of your parish? And he said, St. Francis of Sales. I'm like, shut up, no way. No way. And he goes like, why? I'm like, oh, you'll hear why. So St. Francis, today I was praying for you. I was doing my holy hour, and I actually decided to sit right there. You have a relic of St. Francis of Sales right there. So I sat with, my shoulder about 3 inches from the relic, and then looking at the Blessed Sacrament. So I really feel that he's here protecting us tonight. And I don't know if you know much about the amazing saint that this parish is named after. You'll hear more about him during the talk. So as we begin, let me ask you another question besides the can you hear me? Has anyone ever been either to the Rockies or the Alps? Just show of hands. Okay, good. Now, I come from northern Italy, really close to Switzerland. Beautiful mountains and lakes. It's gorgeous. If you've never been up there, trust me, it's beautiful. A lot of waterfalls and mountains and lakes. Now, I'm going to use an analogy about waterfalls to apply to tonight's topic about holiness. So you can see that throughout the centuries, human ingenuity has learned how to harness the power of waterfalls, of the water falling down to create energy. We started with water mills, right? So water from a river, turning the blades with a wheel that would in turn turn a millstone to grind the grains. Fast forward to about last century, where we developed the hydropower plants that create energy, and then that energy, that electricity, reaches our cities, our towns, our homes. Now, we all know that it's not enough for a house to be sitting right under the power line to receive electricity, right? It's not enough. You need to connect to it. You need to connect to that source of electricity in order for the house to have power. Now, imagine the incarnation of Jesus as being that powerful waterfall that generates power that runs throughout history. But again, it's not enough just to sit by this extremely powerful source of energy to be transformed. We need to connect to it. And that is what baptism does. So baptism is our way to enter into that currency, into that current of electricity, of spiritual power, of spiritual electricity. So that's what baptism does. Baptism inserts us in this flow of graces that come our way. They are meant for us to receive. So in baptism, that's exactly what happens. God inserts us into the life of the Trinity, and from that moment on, the Trinity dwells inside of us. Each of us, we are the indwelling of the Blessed Trinity. And the beautiful thing is that there's no trespassing zone, right? There's no blackout dates when it comes to holiness, when it comes to grace. It's free, it keeps flowing. There's no such a thing as don't come here or blackout zones. So holiness is real. Heaven has been burst open for us, and we can be like little kids in a playground. Just go get wild. If you've had kids or grandkids, you know when they see a new playground, they go wild. Well, that's us being inserted into God's grace. And so holiness is real. It's at our fingertips. So I'm introducing tonight's topic, which is a call to holiness. Now, I've been in the US for about 25 years, and one thing that I learned about Americans is that you guys love acronyms. Everything in this country runs on acronyms. You know, RCIA, ASAP, LOL, FYI, you name it. You guys have acronyms for everything. And so I remember one day thinking, I want to be cool. I want to come up with an acronym myself. And so here's an acronym that I associated to the call of holiness, and that is RSVP. You've heard that. So RSVP, you know, people invite you to a baptism, a wedding, a birthday party, and they send you an RSVP, which really means, are you coming? Now, RSVP are the 4 letters that show the beginning of 4 French words. I don't know French, but I know enough that it stands for Répondez s'il vous plaît, which means reply if you please. So like literally, you're inviting someone and asking them, are you coming? Just let us know. Now, the way I use this acronym is for holiness, and the R stands for responsibility, S stands for sacraments, V stands for virtues, and P stands for prayer. So when we were baptized, when you and I were baptized, God told us, look, I'm inviting you to holiness. Are you coming? RSVP? Let me know if you're coming. So tonight we're going to look into the RSVP. So R stands for responsibility, but put a little hyphen between response, hyphen, ability. So responsibility literally means the ability to respond. So I am capable of responding to God's invitation to become holy. Will I respond? Will I RSVP? So R stands for responsibility, S stands for sacraments, V for virtues, and P for prayer. So we're going to mix them up a little bit. Tonight we're going to talk about holiness, so the R and the V of virtues. Tomorrow night we're going to talk about prayer. And Wednesday night we're going to talk about sacraments, particularly the Eucharist. Are you with me so far? Good. Okay, a little bit about my story about holiness. I grew up, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, grew up in a very beautiful Catholic family, did CCD and did all of it. I would go to Mass every Sunday, played music at the parish. But at some point, when I was 18, I just thought that I was smarter than everybody else. New concept, right? And I decided to take off and go play soccer. That became my career for a couple of years. But the only commitment that I kept was playing guitar at Mass, because I really enjoyed music. And one Sunday, during Mass, the Apostles of the Interior Life, so this community that I eventually joined, showed up for a parish mission. And I remember hearing one of them, that got my attention. So I asked if I could talk with one of them, sign up for a little spiritual direction session. And I remember her asking me the question, what is the goal of your life? I'm like, I don't know, that's a big question. I'm 20, I don't know. And she goes like, the goal of your life is holiness, is to be a saint. And I remember laughing, saying, yeah, right, you're a nun, you're called to holiness, not me. And then she asked me, why do you say that? What do you think holiness is? I felt this big or this small. It's like, oh, I should know catechism, holiness, holiness, what is holiness? I couldn't remember. And she said, holiness means becoming the person that God had in mind when He created you. That's what holiness is. Holiness means to become the woman that God had in mind when He created you. And she added, you will be truly and fully holy when you will be happy, and you will be truly and fully happy when you will be holy. And I remember that one day looking at her and saying, you have peace. You have a peace that I don't have, and I want it. How do I do it? And that was the beginning of my journey into, a fellowship of Christ and a journey of holiness that eventually brought me to discern my vocation, leave my job. I was an accountant. Bruce, believe it or not, I was an accountant. It happens. And the Lord called me and asked me to follow Him in a life of consecrated life. So each of us is called to holiness, not just nuns and priests, as I thought. All of us are called to holiness. 1 Thessalonians says, this is the will of God, your holiness. So that is why God keeps sending us that RSVP over and over and over again. Are you coming? I invite you to holiness. Are you coming? Let me know if you're coming. And so He desires to give us everything that He is and that He has. So God desires for us to participate in that. And so holiness is for everybody. The Second Vatican Council has this beautiful quote, all the faithful of Christ of whatever rank or status are called to the fullness of the Christian life and to the perfection of charity. Or as Mother Teresa of Calcutta used to say, holiness is not optional. Sometimes we think that holiness can be put off, postponed. You know what? I'll be holy once the kids get off to college. Or I'll start on holiness after I retire from work. Or, after I graduate college. No. Holiness is for here and for now, for each of us. And it's key for us each to realize that holiness is custom made for each person. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Each person has his or her unique call to follow the Lord. We are loved individually, and as individuals, we respond. So let me give you another analogy. I use a lot of analogies and images, I think like a kid, but usually they stick in people's memories. So imagine that someone gave you a great gift. Whatever it is that you desire, I don't know what's your dream. Maybe for some of you is, oh my gosh, on my bucket list, I want to go to a Broadway show. Well, imagine that someone gets you that Broadway show ticket. Or someone else is like, oh my gosh, I'd love to take my family on a ski trip. It's very expensive. And someone says, you know what? I have a house up in Colorado. It's yours. Take your family. Or maybe someone else says, you know what? I'll build you a brick oven to put on your patio so you can make good Italian pizza. Whatever your dream is, right? Okay, so imagine just for a moment, think about, okay, my biggest dream, and someone makes it happen. Now, the least you can do is to thank that person, right? Now, each of us will thank that big benefactor according to how we are made. So if someone gives me my greatest gift, my dream gift, you know, I cook Italian. So maybe I can just host them for a beautiful Italian meal because I can do that. And then, well, Lori, can I pick on you? Lori is an amazing artist. So maybe Lori will just do something beautiful, a painting or a sculpture or something, like something artistic. And maybe someone else among you has maybe a boat and they will take them out fishing, you know. Now, it would be really, really weird for me to take someone out on a boat fishing, right? I'm scared of water. It might be really weird for her to cook an Italian meal, and it would be probably weird for the guy who owns a boat to paint something. So each of us responds according to the way we are made. Now that is holiness. So holiness is custom made, because through a journey of holiness, I am answering to that RSVP saying, I'm coming, I'm in, sign me up. Now here is where St. Francis de Sales, your patron saint and my favorite saint, comes to tell us something about the uniqueness of our call to holiness and how we respond. He says, I say that devotion, and you can, use here, substitute it for the word holiness. I say that devotion must be practiced in different ways by the nobleman and by the working man, by the servant and by the prince, by the widow, the unmarried girl and the married woman. But even this distinction is not sufficient, for the practice of devotion must be adapted to the strength, the occupation, and the duties of each in particular. And here's the kicker. He says, is it normal for a working man to spend his whole day in church like a religious? Or for married people to be no more concerned than a Franciscan friar about increasing their income? Is not this sort of devotion ridiculous and intolerable? Yet this absurd error occurs very frequently. True devotion does not destroy anything. Hear this well. True devotion, a call to holiness, does not destroy anything. In fact, if it ever works against one's legitimate state in life and calling, then it is very definitely false devotion. Sometimes we get it wrong. We think that to be holy means to be kneeling down in church for 10 hours every day. And because that's not possible, we say, well, then holiness is not for me. Do you see where the mistake is? We think that someone else's path to holiness is my own path to holiness. And so we think, well, sisters and priests and monks, they spend hours and hours in prayer, then I should do that. And because I see that I can't, then I give up. It's like, it's not for me. I'll become holy after I retire, right? Then I will have time to spend 5 hours in church. No. Each of us is called to holiness in our unique way, and the Lord is inviting us to respond according to our uniqueness. So let me give you an example of how this can be a little bit, we can have misunderstanding. So my dad, love my dad, he's 90 years old, starting with a little bit of dementia back in Italy. always loved helping out at church. He was a handyman, he was a carpenter, he would do anything at the parish. So Christmas Eve, my mom is cooking up a storm for Christmas, and Dad decides that it's time to clean up the water heater in the house, Christmas Eve. So he takes it out, undoes the whole thing, sets it out on the table, right? All the pieces, because he has to clean it, and then he realizes, oh, I just want to go over to the parish to see if they need anything. So he goes and doesn't come home for about 3 hours, while my mom is fuming, right? Ladies, you can see that? Fuming, and then he finally comes home. My mom did not kill him that day, but it was this close. And she was like livid, and my dad goes like, well, but I just wanted to help out at the parish. And my mom goes like, but you have a family, that's your first duty. And it went straight over my dad's head, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with helping out at the parish. So Father, I'm not encouraging people not to help out at the parish. But, if you have a family and you just remove the boiler, on Christmas Eve, then that's your first duty, right? That's your holiness. Your holiness calls you to get back to the house, put that thing back together, and enjoy Christmas, right? So again, but sometimes we can get the things mixed up a little bit. And so our call to holiness is knowing that the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. Let me say that again. Ladies and gentlemen, the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. There is a place to be generous at the parish. There is a place for everything, but it needs to be in the right order. So as you can see, a call to holiness. Holiness is not rocket science. Rather, it's really a way of embracing God's will for us at every moment. There's a story being told about Saint Dominic Savio, who's this little boy in Italy who was asked by a pastor, a priest, as he was playing soccer with a bunch of other kids. He stopped all the kids and said, okay, kids, if you knew that in 3 hours the Lord would call you home, what would you do? And so one of the kids said, oh, I would run to confession. And the other kid said, I would run home and apologize to my parents. And the other one, I would just make peace with my buddies. And Dominic, little Dominic said, I just keep playing soccer. You see, the kid was ready. He had his business in order. He didn't need to do anything special. He was just ready. So again, holiness is not rocket science. Now, what would I have done if I had been that kid playing soccer when the priest asked me, what would you do? I certainly would not have said, I keep playing soccer. I'd probably say, I'm going to run to confession first thing. So when talking to people of all ages, all walks of life, I often hear the implication that holiness is too high of a goal. Some people say, Sister, it's a good day if I don't yell at my kids all day. So that's as far as I can get close to holiness. Or, you priests and sisters have it easier. I can just do my best to tread water at work, or with my in-laws, or outlaws, as someone calls them. It's hard, right? But let us listen to what Scripture tells us about holiness, about this invitation to holiness, for which we get the RSVP. From the book of Deuteronomy, this command, which he just gave us a few lines before, which is, be holy, for I am holy. This command, which I enjoin on you today, is not too mysterious and remote for you. No, it's not up in the sky that you should say, well, who will go up in the sky to get it for us? Nor is it across the sea that you should say, who will cross the sea to get it for us? No. It's something very near to you, already in your mouths and in your hearts. You have only to carry it out. Again, the Lord does not ask the impossible from us. So clearly, the Word of God here is pointing out the fact that holiness is at hand. So God says, "Be holy, for I, the Lord, am holy." You know, it's a command. God didn't say, would you mind me doing a favor? Would you mind being holy? No, it's a command. And I think that your presence here tonight, it's a clear indication to me that at some point in your life, many years ago or more recently, you felt in your heart a desire to follow the Lord. You wouldn't be here otherwise. And so, holiness is a command, and yet because we have free will, the Lord will never impose it on us. He only proposes. Propose, never impose. He extends an invitation, and we are responsible, we are responsible, able to respond to that gift that we received at baptism. And so our growth in holiness is proportionate to our commitment to daily prayer, which we will talk about tomorrow, and to a life of virtues. So choosing to strive for holiness means to live our lives following Christ's example in the small daily occurrences. Now, anytime we hear the word perfection, I don't know about you, but my antennas go up, because our Western world is a lot about perfectionism. I don't know if any of you has ever experienced that, but you know, we think that things have to be perfect on a human level. And that is impossible because, sorry to break the news, none of us is perfect, right? And again, God can never possibly command us to do the impossible. So it's illogic, right? So then the perfection that God is calling us is not the perfection that we have in mind of being flawless, of never making a mistake, because it ain't be heaven yet. But the Lord is inviting us to be perfected, and that's a different story. We can be perfected, so we can strive for perfection, knowing that we cannot reach it here on this earth. We will only attain full and complete perfection in heaven. Nonetheless, here on earth, we are called to be perfected, to improve, to become the man and the woman that God called us to be when He brought us into existence. And so let's look at some concrete examples of what does holiness even look like. I'd say that anytime the Lord in Scripture speaks about forgiveness, humility, patience, love, temperance, endurance, generosity, He's speaking about holiness. We cannot separate holiness from virtues. Virtues are the material that constitutes holiness. And so I can live out my holiness in my family, in the classroom, with my co-workers, at the parish. I can ask Our Lady, who is the one that, the one human creature that was perfect, I can ask her to teach me how to reach this journey of holiness. And so as a child, what does it look like for a child to seek holiness? It probably means to spend time with the boy or the girl that is a little bit on their own, that maybe eats by themselves in the cafeteria, that is not so popular. Maybe as a young person, as a teenager, I can strive for holiness and live in those virtues by defending someone that is being made fun of or made the object of gossip. Or I can be an example of holiness by choosing not to cheat in a relationship or to strive to live purity in my dating experience. As an adult, I can live out virtues and grow in holiness by placing the needs of my loved ones before mine. By joyfully playing with the kids when I come home from work. Or as a wife, I can strive for holiness and follow Mary's example to find maybe the right and kind and gentle words to speak to my husband who might be afraid that his job is on the line. These are all very concrete ways to be holy. On the parish level, what does it mean to be holy, to strive for virtues? It means to embrace a project, even if it's not the one that I voted on. Maybe at a committee, 2 projects were brought up, and the other project was chosen, and I could be bitter about it, or I can say, I'm behind this 100%. There are so many ways in which we can live holiness and be virtuous within even a parish life. Now, you've heard me speak quite a bit about virtue, and so I'm transitioning from just the call to holiness, which is not abstract, it's concrete, and it's lived out through virtues. How does the Catechism define a virtue? Here's a very simple definition. Virtue is an habitual and firm disposition to do the good. The goal of a virtuous life is to become like God. So following this definition, virtue is not the accomplishment of a single good action, rather the habitual repetition of good. And so the more we grow in the interior life, the more attracted we become to good. And guess what? The more I do good, the more I want to do it. The more I want to do it, the more I do it. And guess what? The more I do it, the more I want to do it. You see, it just goes. Unfortunately, the opposite is true. The less I do good, the less I want to do it. And the less I want to do it, the less I do it. And guess what? The less I do it, the less I want to do it. It goes both ways. So a virtue is a firm and habitual disposition to do the good. Now, if you want like a quick check, a thermometer to check how's my life of virtue going, a common denominator of the saints is that they chose the good with easiness, promptness, and joy. So when something comes with ease, immediately and joyfully, then you know that you have that virtue. Let me give you an example. 2 people are walking out of the parking lot after Mass on Sunday, and a wallet is on the ground. So the first person picks it up, opens it, sees someone's, driver's license, and turns it immediately at the office and says, okay, I found this. Another person finds exactly the same wallet, opens it, finds someone's information, and then goes like, ooh, $200 in cash. Yeah, I just need to replace the brakes on the car, and yeah, that would come really handy. What should I do? And so they go back and forth, and then they decided to bring it to the parish office. Who do you think of these 2? They both did the right thing, right? They both turned it in, but who do you think has the virtue of honesty? Why? Why the first? Right away. They did it right away, right? Were they bitter about it? No. Ease, promptness, and joy. They did it right away. So again, both did a virtuous action, but virtue is the habitual repetition of good. It's not enough to do it once. And so the more I do good, the more I want to do it. The more I want to do it, the more I do it. Remember? It goes in that direction. There's a great book, gentlemen, called Boys to Men by Curtis Martin and Tim Gray. Let me quote. It says, Having good values is a fine thing, but the battle of morality is not so much about knowing what is right as it is doing what is right. The difference between wanting to do good and actually doing it is tremendous. To be a morally good person takes more than wishing to be good or having the right values. Rather, it takes a rock-solid character that has the strength to will what is right, not just value what is good. Now, there's a difference between saying, oh, I'd love to make a cake, to bake a cake, and to actually roll up your sleeves and do it, right? You won't be able to savor a good idea. You know, you taste a good cake when it's actually in front of you. So it takes more than just knowing what is right. We need to do it. For example, everybody knows that smoking is bad. How many people quit smoking just based on that knowledge? Right? To be a man or a woman of virtue means to be imitators of Christ, means to do God's will every step along the way. It means to be found at the right place at the right time. I love sports. If you, gentlemen especially, if you ever follow basketball, I love the no-look assists, right? A guy dribbles on the court, and without even looking, he passes the ball to his teammates. He knows exactly where his teammate is going to be. That's a no-look assist. Now, if his teammate is not there, that ball will be wasted, right? Being in the right place at the right time, that's holiness. Think if Andrew and James and John that morning decided when Jesus was walking by, you know what, we had a tough night, I'm going to sleep in this morning. They would not have encountered the Lord. Or David in the Old Testament, who sinned with Bathsheba because he was like strolling on the roof of the palace, and then he sinned. Well, the man should have been at war to begin with, right? He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So virtues is real, it's incarnate, and it's something that the Lord is inviting us to that will create that joy and that peace that we're looking for. So St. Francis de Sales, again, I highly encourage you, if you have not read some of his writings, Introduction to the Devout Life is a masterpiece of the spiritual life down through the centuries. We just celebrated 2 years ago his 400th anniversary of his death. I mean, this book is one of the books that has been translated in most languages besides the Bible. In the Introduction to the Devout Life, he's talking about patience. Now, talk about patience, right? It's hard. We all know it. Which the Latin word for patience is patire, which means to suffer. So if you've ever wondered why it's hard to be patient, it's because it's hard to suffer. That's actually why people in hospitals are called patients. They are sufferers. Just remember that. So it's hard to suffer. It's hard to be patient. So St. Francis de Sales has this one chapter where he's talking about the fact that we shouldn't complain, we shouldn't complain. I was like, come on, come on. So finally, you flip the page, and then he has this line, well, if you have to complain at all, I go like, yes. He says, if you have to complain at all, he says, and I quote, let it be to someone peaceful, because others, instead of extracting the thorn, will push it in deeper. Let me say that again. If you have to complain at all, find someone who's peaceful. Because others, instead of extracting the thorn, will just push it in deeper. Right? We all love to complain with people that agree with us. Right? Oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that or she did that. Do we feel like, oh yeah, someone is on my side? He says, no, that doesn't do us any good. Let's go to someone who is peaceful, So an analogy that I can think of is, if you see a fire, you have two options. You can either pick up a bucket of water or a tank with gasoline. They will have two opposite results, correct? So we can either be that peaceful person that dumps water on the fire to calm someone down, that they're, I can't believe this happened, or we can fuel the fire. So that can be one simple question that we can carry during our prayer time tonight. Imagine that every morning, with your car keys, you can pick up a water bucket or a gasoline tank as you leave the house. It's our decision. What decision do I make? That's virtue. And if I decide tomorrow morning to pick up water, and then again on Wednesday morning and Thursday and Friday, you know, in a few days, in a few weeks, by choosing virtue, the habitual repetition of good, I will notice that I'm becoming more peaceful. Are you still with me? I see a lot of heads nodding. Praise the Lord. Again, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And St. Francis of Sales helps us with his amazing teachings and his simplicity. Now, holiness is not conquered once for all. It's a daily effort. We don't become holy overnight, although we do become holier every time we try to live out the gospel. And by the way, this is not all on our shoulders. We can't do any of this without God's grace. That's why we come to the sacraments, to receive that grace that we need to propel us forward. Now, if you have your hand out, you've been wondering, what in the world is that image at the bottom? As I said, I'm very visual, and I remember when I was in junior high, we had this experiment of the communicating vessels. Now, Andrea, you're into physics. I have no idea, or Ken, same thing. I have no idea how physics work. I just know that when you have all these vases that are connected at the bottom, you start pouring liquid in one of them, and the level of the liquid will rise equally in all of them. Physicists, is that correct? Right? I don't know what the fancy name is. Okay, thank you. The fancy name, what it is, communicating vessels, dynamics, something. But I know by experience, you pour liquid in one, it rises equally in all of them. So that's the best analogy that I could come up with virtues. Think of all these individual vessels that you see, vases, as one virtue. So let's say the first one, let's say it's the virtue of forgiveness, and then humility, honesty, purity, generosity, patience, you name it. You could have 500, vases. It doesn't change the truth. Now, imagine that you start pouring liquid into one of them. Let's say forgiveness. Let's say that you pick forgiveness and you say, you know what, during this Lent, I feel that the Lord is calling me to forgive this one person in my life. And so you start pouring liquid water in the vase of forgiveness. And then you will start noticing that your humility starts increasing, your honesty starts increasing, your purity increases, your generosity, your patience. So all the other virtues will rise equally because the spiritual life is all connected. When you start working on one virtue, all the other virtues will benefit from it. Unfortunately, the opposite is true. If you choose to hold on to resentment, and staying with the analogy, you just poke a little hole under forgiveness. It's like, no, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to hold on to this resentment. And so water is going to start to drip out, but not just of that vase of forgiveness. You will see that your patience starts decreasing, your charity, your purity, your perseverance, your generosity, all the other virtues. Now, it's an analogy, of course it's not mathematical, but just to give an idea of how the spiritual life is all absolutely connected. And so as we bring this talk to a close and we're about to have the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, and Sister Janelle will help us during this prayer time, and I will be playing a little bit of background music. Let us thank the Lord for the ways in which He continues to invite us to holiness over and over and over again. He never tires of inviting us back. Like a good grandma and grandpa keeps inviting the kids and grandkids over, no matter how many times they say, oh, I'm busy, I have soccer, I have this and that. Just keeps inviting us back to His loving arms. So we're now going to transition into some prayer time and note of our prayers for you. And then after this prayer time, we will have some time for a Q&A. If anything struck you from the talk, or if you would like to reflect some more, we will have some time for that.
We don't have the lyrics printed out, but if you know the songs, they're pretty simple, and feel free to join in.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary. Sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Sister Rafaela said that the incarnation of Jesus was like a powerful waterfall. We have this powerful waterfall present here in front of us in the Eucharist. God became man in the incarnation, and he also became bread in the Eucharist, and he is here in front of us. We want to open our hearts to receive him into us. So again, as we pray the words of this simple song, we ask him to prepare us to be a sanctuary, prepare us so that he can live in us. And through his divine life in us, we may be transformed, we may be holy as he is holy.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
During this time of prayer, feel free to assume the position that is most comfortable for you, the most conducive for prayer. If there are some words that Sister Rafaela said this evening that strike you, you may continue to ponder those words. During Eucharistic adoration, we don't necessarily have to think any particular thoughts, but it's rather the relationship that we are entering into with the Lord. So If anything, we are called to have open hearts to receive him who is present in front of us. Sister Rafaela said that holiness is an invitation from God. It's also a gift. It's a gift that he wants to give us. How do we receive this gift? By desiring it, by wanting it. If we come to the waterfall with our little thimble, he can fill it as much as our little thimble can hold. If our desire is bigger, like a pail, he can fill it as much as the pail has. If we come with a desire as big as a swimming pool, he can fill it. So it all depends on the capacity of our own hearts, the measure of our desire. And he, like we said, he is here present, truly present in the Eucharist, waiting for us, just waiting, desiring to give us his divine life, to give us the gift of holiness, of union with him. So let us ask for the grace. the grace to have open eyes, open hearts to receive him. We can ask this grace with the song.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you high lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your love and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you high lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, 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 holy.
As we near the close of this time of Eucharistic adoration, we'd like to call to mind what we have received this evening, how the Lord has spoken to our hearts, the words or the images or the analogy that we bring home with us tonight. We want to focus on that just a little bit more and thank the Lord for these ways in which he has spoken to us. And we want to praise him. Praise him for being here, for being alive, and for desiring this very real and intimate relationship with us.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken, and great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken, and great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord.
Okay, so we thank the Lord for this beautiful time, and I pray that this was indeed a powerful, intimate moment for each of us. It certainly was for me, praying with you and over you during this time. So this can be really a time for a Q&A. At the same time, I've talked your ears off, so it could be more also of a sharing. So if you have any question, any comment, anything that you feel that maybe the Lord spoke to you during prayer that you would like to share, we're here. So we just need a brave soul to break the ice. Don't be shy. It's worse if I start calling people. There you go. We got a brave soul. And what's your name?
So my name is Erin, and I wanted to share that as I was meditating, reflected on the piece about uniqueness that you talked about and my specific unique calling and relationship to holiness. So that really stuck with me, and it's something I'm me as I leave tonight.
Yes, blessed Carlo Acutis, this young teenage boy from Italy that will be proclaimed a saint just in a couple of weeks, had this beautiful line. He said, "We are all born unique, but many die as photocopies." It's a very beautiful insight. We're born unique, and then we get lost, and we just do the usual thing. But that uniqueness. It's great, Erin. Thank you for saying that. Yes, gentlemen.
My name's Gregory Ward. Someone gave me a penny to say something to you. And I wanted to thank you very much for coming this long journey and mission and sharing all your powerful views, insights. I always knew I was never as holy as Father John or any of the priests, but I always felt like I compared myself to them. And I walk away with something that's just my own little self in a unique way, and I have little talents to give. So thank you for making me say something. But I'll savor this penny, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is very beautiful. It's true. We do compare. Some time ago I heard the word that comparing is despairing. Isn't that true? We compare, and the grass is always greener on the other side, but claiming that uniqueness. I mean, both of you kind of touched upon the same from different perspectives, but we need to claim that call. It's for each of us. It's not just for someone out there. It's for each of us, and it's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, this side was too quiet, so finally.
Hi, Brenda Wazinski. I just want to thank you because I got emotional during the prayer, and Father Zach, he kept talking about this, and I did some leadership stuff with him, and this whole year has been, I don't know, it's touched my heart in many, I don't want to cry, but no, but the team that I work with in the church, I love them to death, and this whole year I've been working on this piece, and I've been talking to my husband about it, and I want to be the peace for other people, if that makes sense. And I want to try to make somebody's life better. And you were hitting on so many parts. I'm thinking, okay, God, are you you're trying to tell me something? But and I'm broken like everybody else. I have weaknesses, and I pray on it all the time. But I'm so glad that I came tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. And as you're talking about this peace, we all long for it. I was telling Lori this morning that I draw for the life of me. And so I can't create beauty, but I recognize it when I see it. If you're an artist, you can also create beauty. If you're like me, who draws stick figures, you can't create beauty, but when you see it, you recognize it. And that's what happened to me when I saw that piece. I said, I want it. You have it, I want it. And isn't it true that people that are virtuous are attractive? Isn't it true that we are attractive? We want to be around people that are virtuous, people that are joyful and patient and temperate and generous. There's something about virtue that is absolutely attractive. But there wouldn't be any attractiveness out there if people didn't try to be virtuous, right? We wouldn't have anyone to look up to be virtuous. So we have the saints, St. Francis de Sales being one, and all the saints in heaven, but we also have each other. And we all can name at least one person in our life, whether it's a grandparent, a neighbor, a sibling, someone that we can say, I'm just peaceful when I'm around this person. And I would venture to say that those are the people that every morning choose to pick up the water bucket and not the gasoline tank when they leave their house. So thank you for pointing out the peace. Yes.
Hi, my name is Gail. I just wanted to thank you for the reflection on, as we choose one virtue to work on, that all the others are going to follow. I've never thought of it that way before, but even in this short time before the Lord, I could feel that in my heart, how true that is. And I think being aware of it makes it more tangible for me.
Yes, please.
My name is Gabby, and interesting that you bring up the topic of holiness, because for the last year I've been praying. Saint Teresa, Saint Teresa Lisieux, little flower, she always said she wanted to die a saint, and I've been praying for God to help me to be holy, because I want to die a saint as well. So this has been just like right exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. So let's not assume that we're not already on the journey. You know, again, as I said, here tonight is because at some point you felt that call, besides Father Zach talking your ears off about this mission, but besides that, or maybe because of that, just that desire, it's already alive.
Yes, you have to have peace as an athlete, as I am at the age of 64, in order for you to accomplish the goals that the Lord blesses you with. He gives you the strength of the mighty kings to conquer, and getting me up in the morning at 5 o'clock, even though I don't want to get up and exercise, he gets me up to give me that virtue talking about.
That's beautiful, and that reminds me, so when the Catechism says that virtue is the habitual and firm disposition to do the good, not only we are attracted to people that are virtuous in a spiritual way, but those are very human virtues. You know, who of you would go to see a doctor who only rarely attended classes in med school? Who of you would choose as a financial advisor someone who only seldomly checks the stock market? Right? We don't do that. Right? Why? Because we know that in order for these people to be accomplished in what they do, they need to be regular. So, habitual disposition to do the good. That getting up in the morning even when we don't feel like it, and that's a virtue, right? It's not easy, it's simple, but it's not easy. And so every day we need to recommit. Some days you kind of like pet that gasoline tank and go like, oh, I've got some things to say to someone today, right? It's hard to choose, no, I'm gonna pick up the water bucket because I need to contribute to a peaceful environment. So, thank you. Yes.
I'm Patrick. One of the things that struck me tonight happened this weekend, and that was the genuineness I think we all felt coming from you sisters. This has been a hard year for this pastorate. There are 252 of us gathered here tonight, from Prince of Peace, from St. Francis de Sales, as a family, and that means everything.
Thank you. We're just amazed at seeing this sea of people. Like, I didn't count, but that's pretty impressive. I saw a hand going up back here. Okay. I used to run faster, but it's been a few years.
Hi, I'm Jaisa. So my question is, or rather, if you can tell us a little bit more about, in this practice of virtue, that we're not alone, and about something about the grace of God helping us through that.
Yes. Thank you so much for your question. So, you know, the difference between a virtue and a self-help experience, right? there's a ton of self-help books out there, right? You do this, 5 steps to this, 8 steps to do this. I mean, those are good, but they rely only on my own strength and pushing through it, and it's all on my shoulders. A growth of virtue is always a response to that invitation. The Lord is inviting us to holiness, but He's also providing us with the tools that we need to grow in virtue. And that's where grace kicks in. So grace is the life of God within us, right? And there's nothing we can do to earn grace. It's free. It's that waterfall. It's, what Christ gained for us through His death and resurrection. And that never stops. That grace is like the Niagara Falls. You can be up there under it with a little thimble. There's more. So that is the relationship between growth in virtue and God's help. So it's a combination of the habitual repetition of the good. So the Lord provides the fuel. The Lord provides what we need to do it. There would be a whole other parish mission maybe in the future, but the virtues, think about, if you might have heard about the cardinal virtues. So the church, in her wisdom, to teach us about virtues, divides the virtues into theological and human or natural or cardinal virtues. The word cardinal comes from Latin cardo, which means hinge. So the hinge of a door. So a door revolves open or closed on a hinge. So the cardinal virtues are the virtues on which the whole spiritual life pivots, right? But they are under the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, which are sheer gifts from the Lord. Now, talking about acronyms, I couldn't remember for the life of me the order of the cardinal virtues, and so I came up with this sentence or acronym: ponder just few things. P for prudence, J for justice, F for fortitude, and T for temperance. Those are the 4 virtues. So ponder just few things. Like the virtues, again, are not hard, they're simple. Ponder just few things, meaning we are given the grace from the Lord, we just need to respond. So again, it's not a self-help book. Like even the Lenten resolution, it's not a Catholic Weight Watcher, right? Okay, I'm gonna lose weight, give up chocolate and desserts. That's not how it works, but it's our response to an invitation that comes from the Lord. So thank you, that was a very good question. Yes, Bruce. Sorry I picked on you earlier.
Well, I'd like to thank you just for this fresh perspective on what holiness is. And you think about being holy, but I'm reminding us that each of us is holy. And I hadn't thought about that before, but there's holiness in each of us. And I thank you for that.
And I thank you for your example here. Bruce and Lori have been hosting us at their house. And then Kathy and Rich, where are they? They're hosting, back there, hosting the other sisters. So we divided up. So thank you so much for your example of holiness. Every night when we go back, we just have a little tea and chat. So we've been able to witness that holiness. It's amazing. Yeah, a few more minutes, maybe 2, yes. You make me work out.
So my name is Chuck. The question I have relates to specific about prayer and prayer within families. We're supposed to display that holiness, but how do you display that holiness within the family context to our children without feeling like to them it's a chore? Because you want them to have relationship with Christ, not feel as though it's a burden to have to do like repetitious prayers and things of that nature. So could you speak a little bit to that?
That's a very beautiful question. I saw a lot of heads nodding, probably other parents. Now, ideally, this would be a question for parents who have done this before. So I can just relay what I've seen in my family and, you know, in families, many families that I meet. First of all, your example of a father and a husband, it's probably going to be the best invitation to your kids for them to see that daddy is a man of prayer, and that when daddy doesn't pray, the day doesn't go as well, right? We all can see when, you know, we're not praying and it's like, you know, patience goes out the window and all of that, right? So for the parents to be able to talk to the children about their own prayer life. I've seen parents who apologize to their kids if there's a quarrel, and then they go to confession together. I've seen parents go into confession with their kids where they apologize to each other, and then they go to confession. And that is kind of like the next gear, like you change gears when you're driving, right? In Italy, we have stick shift, right? It's the next gear. It allows you to go faster. So that's one way your example as a husband and father will show them that there's something qualitatively different about your life. The other thing is, don't be afraid if prayer is messy at home. With little kids, I mean, they can be chewing on the rosary, they can be hitting